Hi, I'm Joe Rowan. I want to talk to you about a little suite of instruments I made, 3 PVC clarinets. These are made out of regular PVC pipe like you can get at any hardware store, with bells made of automotive funnels and holes drilled right in, no keys or anything, just open holes. This is the concert model and Soprano alongside it. And here's a bass that doesn't quite fit on screen here. Bass PVC clarinet. The lowest note on this instrument is a G, somewhere around 98 Hertz. And has a C, D, and G above it, a little 4-note clarinet. I think of all of these instruments as being pitched relative to the key of G, so the bass has a root, 4th, 5th, and octave, which is plenty to play a good bass line. Okay. This next one, the concert model, also has G as its lowest note, and has G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, and F sharp as its notes. So that spells out a G harmonic minor scale, which I think is a particularly lovely sound for clarinet, and also allows you to play a nice minor blues and still have the major 5 chord, which I think is an excellent tonality for clarinet to play with. This one here, the Soprano, starts and ends on C, but I still think of this as being an instrument pitched relative to the key of G. You've got G right in the middle and can still play the beginnings of a G minor scale, but lets you walk up to it to approach the G with a C, D, and F sharp. You can probably hear that this instrument does not play especially well in tune. None of the instruments are perfectly in tune, but this one tends to have problems with tuning even on the best of days. So this instrument is a little impractical. I get most of my use out of the concert and bass models. A question that people ask about these instruments is, how do I know they're clarinets? Are they clarinets? And maybe are they saxophones? Especially since the mouthpiece for all these instruments is a saxophone mouthpiece and not a clarinet, which I chose just because the saxophone mouthpieces fit a little nicer into a piece of PVC pipe. The reason I know that they're clarinets and not saxophones is that a clarinet is a cylinder, which means that its body never gets any wider along its length, except for the very extreme ends of the instrument. But for the vast majority of the instrument's body, anywhere you look, the instrument is not any wider than it was above it. Whereas with a saxophone is a cone, although sometimes it's kind of an S-shaped cone. But if you're to sample along the length of the body, the saxophone here and then here, this next part is wider. And if you went down just a little bit more, this part is wider. And this is wider still, and wider still. And all along the length of the body, the saxophone is always wider than it was where you checked previously. This is even true of clarinets that look like saxophones, like the bass clarinet, which has the same S shape. But the same is true that if you look along the majority of the body, anywhere you look, this is not any wider, this is not any wider, this is not any wider. That particular shape, the difference between cylinder and cone, is what give clarinets and saxophones their distinctive sounds. You might have thought that because a clarinet is made of wood or plastic, and a saxophone is made of brass, that's why a saxophone has a brassy sound comparatively, and a clarinet has kind of a woody, muffled sound. But it doesn't have anything to do with the materials that they're made from. You can make a wooden saxophone or a metal clarinet, and they will continue to have the same properties of one sounding more woody and mellow and one sounding more brassy. So because of that, I know that these instruments must be clarinets because the vast majority of their body is cylinder shaped and not cone shaped. But there's another way to tell, which is that a saxophone overblows at the octave, or another way to put it is that this fingering will give you a G in the low register, and if it were a saxophone, you could play up to an even higher G with these same fingerings. A clarinet does not work that way. A clarinet overblows at the 12th, which means that this fingering will give you a G in the low register, and by the time you get back to this fingering, having gone all the way up by opening all the holes and getting back to this closed position, you'll have a D significantly higher than an octave. And I happen to know that this is G around 196. And this overblown note, that's somewhere around 587 hertz, and that is a D. So because this note overblows at the 12th, this can only be a clarinet. So I'll play you a little music. I'll improvise a little blues for you using the nice G harmonic minor tonality that this instrument has.